Hello and welcome to Weapons and Warfare for Straight Arrow News. I'm your host, Ryan Robertson. This week, we're headed for the open water, from innovation to application, how military leadership is adapting for future maritime conflicts. Just ahead, how one man's search for a quiet drone led to the first innovation of propeller technology in nearly 2 centuries. Plus, we take a look at the Marine Corps' replacement for the amphibious assault vehicle as the ACV-30 hits the beach in Japan. And we catch up with former naval aviator Rob Roy to get his thoughts on what the restrictions for the V-22 Osprey might mean for his former daily driver, the C-2 Greyhound. But first, let's get to some headlines you may have missed. After months of planning, preparations, and training, President Volodymyr Zelensky made it official. Ukraine has received its first F-16 fighter jets. It's seen as a major boost in their efforts to fight back against an onslaught of Russian missile strikes. F-16 jets, sporting Ukraine's Trident insignia on their tails and draped in camouflage netting, were a dramatic background for Zelensky's address on Armed Forces Day, an event held under tight security at an undisclosed location to protect the aircraft from Russian attacks.
I can't for today give you details with the missions. I think you will see, maybe not all of them, but you will see the results. We will decide to comment if it was the result with F-16 or not. It's not. I mean, it's not the moment for this. I think it's very dangerous for today. We need to do all the security measures which been discussed with our partners about using F-16. But anyway, these jets are in our sky.
President Joe Biden gave the go-ahead a year ago for used F-16s to be deployed to Ukraine, though the U.S. won't be providing any of its own jets. Belgium, Denmark, the Netherlands, and Norway have committed to providing Ukraine with more than 60 of them over the coming months. As the threat from China to American interests in the Pacific continues to grow, the U.S. is making moves to counter the risk. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and announced $500 million in military funding to boost Philippine defenses and build on a proposed military intelligence sharing pact.
Both of us share concerns, and many other countries in the region share concerns as well, about some of the actions that the People's Republic of China has taken, escalatory actions in the South China Sea, the East China Sea, and elsewhere. And this is something that we heard much about from our colleagues at the recent ASEAN meetings. Defiance of the 2016 Arbitral Tribunal decision, coercive methods being used in the seas.
The visit came the week after the Philippines reached a temporary arrangement with China to prevent clashes around the Philippine-occupied Second Thomas Shoal, like the violent face-off between their forces on June 17th. The $500 million would include funding for reinforcing the Philippine Navy's capability, with about $125 million being used for construction and other improvements in parts of Philippine bases to be occupied by U.S. forces under the 2014 Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. And history was made when an Air Force flight crew completed the world's first non-stop KC-46A Pegasus westbound circumnavigation endurance flight. The newest Air Force tanker taking off from McConnell Air Force Base in Kansas, flying around the globe and landing back in Kansas 48 hours later. That achievement preceded news of the Air Force and Boeing announcing a $16.8 million contract for KC-46 software and data enhancements. Boeing says the upgrade will allow air crews to complete weight and balance calculations more efficiently, as well as load the aircraft and start missions faster. The Air Force is in the process of replacing its aging fleet of KC-135 tankers with 179 KC-46s, about half of which have already been delivered. Spend enough time listening to American military leadership talk about the evolving nature of combat, and certain themes begin to repeat as situations in Ukraine, the Red Sea, Gaza, and Taiwan continue to evolve. So too does the need for innovation, perhaps nowhere more so than on the open waters around the world.
We cannot continue to do the same approach that we've had for the past 20 years, particularly in a VAO fight, against a more advanced threat, or a threat that actually has evolved to using very inexpensive capability. We got to be able to innovate and get capability into the hands of the warfighters much faster than we do today.
That was General C.Q. Brown Jr., chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, in May, speaking to members of the Special Forces community. And he's not alone in his thinking.
When we talk about innovation, I think the first place that all of our minds go is to technology innovation. We all think about a new weapon system, more up, more boom, as I like to think about it. But there's another type of innovation that's often overlooked, and that is innovation in the business model.
At Sea Air Space 2024, Michael Wiegand, the Chief Growth Officer for Shift 5, a DoD-contracted data security firm, told audience members innovation can come from non-traditional sources.
An advantage that new and emerging businesses have in industry is that they are not encumbered by decades of business process development, and this is always how we've done things.
Enter Sharrow Marine, makers of the Sharrow propeller. If it looks a little radical, that's because it is. According to the company's namesake, Greg Sharrow, his patented design is the first significant leap in propeller technology since the 1830s. That's back when the nations of Texas and Mexico were fighting for the Alamo.
It is the propulsion revolution, and we're transforming the boating experience for people.
But Sharrow did not set out to start a revolution. Originally, he wanted to create an ultra-quiet drone for video production.
Made me think about the tip of the propeller, because that's the noisiest part of the propeller because of the tip vortices. They flutter and they make that buzzing sound. And so I thought, well, if I want to use it for music, I can't just make it smaller, I have to eliminate it altogether. And that led me to ask the question, what would a tipless propeller look like and how would it function? And I went to bed asking that question, I woke up asking that question, and the next day, while I was walking my dog, this idea just popped in my head.
That idea was to eliminate the traditional prop blade and instead use a loop. After considerable research and development, Sharrow and his team started producing and testing this radical design change. A change that Sharrow says improves the riding experience, reduces noise, and is considerably more fuel efficient. It's the kind of innovation they're hoping to deliver to the military.
For special operations community, the quieter, obviously it's stealthier, right? Yeah. But there's less vibration, so that also is going to be better on the sensors, be better on the operators on board, all that, right? Yeah.
It can be less vibration, which is better on the operators. Less vibration means you're going to reduce the detectability of the vessel, which also has a huge benefit for the operators. And just the fatigue of listening to a really loud, say motor, it's not the motor, propeller, for an extended amount of time, can really wear on you over time. Yeah. And so by reducing that, there's just a tremendous lifestyle benefit to all operators.
It's a technological leap you can see in testing conducted at the University of Michigan. The Sharrow prop churns through more water and reduces or eliminates tip vortices. It all works together to create a difference you can literally hear on the open water.
Even at low speeds, you can feel a difference in the attitude of the boat. You can feel a difference in the command that you have of the boat. You can feel that the boat is moving forward with more confidence, and it's a quieter and smoother, more enjoyable ride.
After a couple of tours on identical boats, one with a traditional prop and one with the Sharrow prop, it would seem to be the kind of innovation American military leadership says they're looking for. On that front, a spokesperson for Sharrow Marine tells us there's nothing they can publicly share just yet. But when that happens, we'll let you know.
Serving you clarity through context, our mission at SAN is to deliver the news straight down the middle. We're different from mainstream media because we spotlight distorted headlines and show you how to do it too. Discover stories that right and left-leaning outlets are choosing not to cover by using our Media Mist tool. Download the SAN app and turn on notifications to have straight facts delivered right to your phone or tablet, and get straight facts anytime at SAN.com.
Who needs SPF 50 at the beach when you can have an ACV 30? A bunch of Marines stationed in Japan can now answer that question, as they recently took delivery of a fleet of amphibious combat vehicles. It's our weapon of the week. This was the scene at Naha Military Port in Okinawa earlier this summer, when the 3rd Marine Division got the keys to some brand new ACV 30s. The 8-wheeled combat fighting vehicle is a big part of the Marine Corps' plan for combat in the Pacific, should the need arise. Built by BAE Systems and Iveco, the ACV-30 can launch from the open sea, travel as far as 12 nautical miles to the shore, and then travel an additional 250 miles on land. And once it hits terra firma, it tops out at 65 miles per hour on paved roads.
This is the first time ACVs have been out here in Okinawa, Japan. We're really excited to start operating with them and testing them out in this environment. The ACVs add an increased lethality to the Marine Corps due to their ship-to-shore surface connector capability, as well as an increased protection for the troops that will be embarked inside the vehicles due to their V-shaped hull. The
all-wheel drive ACV-30 is part of a long-planned upgrade from the 1970s era assault amphibious vehicle. Operated by a crew of 3 and capable of carrying 13 additional Marines, it's armed with an Mk-44 Stretch Bushmaster dual-fed cannon. That's now the largest direct-fire gun in the Marine Corps inventory. With a price tag of $3 to $4.5 million, the Marine Corps expects to take delivery of 632 ACVs in 4 different variants, 175 of which will be ACV-30s. Time now for this week's comms check, and when the top boss at U.S. Naval Air Systems Command testified to Congress that the V-22 Osprey would not be cleared to return to unrestricted flight status until October of 2025 at the earliest, we wondered what that might mean for the scheduled retirement of the C-2 Greyhound, the Navy's current preferred method for quickly delivering supplies and more to deployed battle groups. To get some insight on what might happen, we're turning to a familiar face for our viewers, former naval aviator, now podcaster, YouTuber, and president of the Royal Aviation Group, Rob Roy.
Thank you for joining us again today. Really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. You got your podcast, you got your father responsibilities and your normal day job. So appreciate it. Since we last talked, we're talking today about the Osprey. Your role in the Navy was, the delivery pilot, right? We kind of talked before about how you're kind of Amazon or Uber Eats for the Navy.
Absolutely, yeah.
The Osprey was going to take over that role from the Greyhound, which is retiring. If there is no aircraft to fulfill that role, what happens?
So the whole point of the C2, which has been called the COD, and that's carrier onboard delivery, which the Osprey is becoming the new COD aircraft, but that is literally the lifeline to the aircraft carrier. So Amazon, Uber Eats, absolutely, from a, like morale perspective, like we would literally bring on packages, and back in the 80s and 70s, I mean, the C2 would bring on literal mail, and that was the only communication. Now we bring on, you can go on Amazon and people get their packages, but we also bring on very critical engine parts, supplies, anything that CAG on board the ship, the commander of the air group, or the skipper of the boat, or the carrier says, we need this on, like we're there the next day, if not that day. And so our range in the C2 was about 1,000 miles, plus or minus a little bit for bingo and reserve fuels. So if you do basic math, 1,000 divided by 2 to fly out to an aircraft carrier is 500 miles. So let's just say an easily 450 miles, depending on bingo. And bingo is like when you need to turn around to go back to shore. So we had a 500-mile range to go to the carrier. I know that the whole point of the Osprey was one of the selling points with the Navy was extended range, extended fuel tanks on the sides, a little beefier, and also the ability to refuel in air. And I don't know when that is going to come online. But if that's the case, I mean, that was the intended mission of it. That kind of the opposite of the C2. You can stay up there indefinitely. But yeah, that's what I understand at the moment with the Osprey trying to replace the C2, that it really can't at this time.
We've seen aircraft that were scheduled for retirement kind of get extended life. I mean, the A-10 comes to mind. In your estimation, will the Navy extend the life of the Greyhound a little bit longer now that this Osprey situation is unfolding?
It already was extended. That's called SLEP, Service Life Extension Program. And that happened, I don't know, mid-2000s. And then it was super slept, as in it happened again. And what that means is they do full-on, stand down of a particular airplane at one aircraft at a time. And then they're going through everything, all the rivets, all the screws, all the wing spars, and they're pulling everything apart. And then I don't know if they reinforce some sort of, parts of the underbelly or the airframe. I'm not entirely sure. I wasn't an engineer or a mech. God bless the maintainers, by the way. But they slept and then super slept the C2 twice. So they've already extended it because Navy planes in particular, there's only so many flight hours and landings and arrested landings that an airframe can take before things start breaking. And I mean, these planes have had, my career, I've had 130 carrier landings from the left and right seat combined. I mean, and that's just one guy flying. Those are over a couple different planes, but these planes have hundreds, thousands of arrested landings, and that's a lot of impact. I mean, you could look into the science with the G's. So will they extend the C2 again? Maybe. I think 2026 is already after what I heard when I was getting out. I think it was always going to be 22, 23, 24, and now here we are in 24, and now it's 26. Would it be a big deal to a few more years? No, because everything is already kind of up and going. It would be better to maybe do another 6 months or 2 or 3 years just to make sure that the Osprey is dialed in. But we still are 2 years away. Things do have a tendency to move a little bit slow with the supply chain. But again, back to what I said before, the C2 and Osprey pilots and the commanding officers and the powers that be are going to figure it out and do their mission with a smile on their face and and get the job done, I guess.
Rob, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. We'll let you get back to the unpacking and the I'm sure you have all kinds of pictures that you need to hang up and everything. Do you have a system for that? Like you and your wife,
my wife says, "Put this here," and I say, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, right. Do you use hammer and nail? Are you still a hammer and nail guy?
I mean, it depends on what it is. Maybe the sticky thing. But no sooner do I get ready to take the box to the recycling, and then the kids are making a fort out of it, so that's fun too. But no, it's all good. But thanks again, Ryan, for your time. I really appreciate it. You guys are doing great work over there.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Take care. See ya.
Bye.
All opinions expressed in this segment are solely the opinions of the contributors.
We are just about out of time for this week's episode of Weapons and Warfare, which means I get to do something I haven't done in weeks: deliver a wrap. So once every few years or so often, the United States Congress creates a bipartisan, supposed to be nonpartisan, commission to do an independent audit of the U.S. National Defense Strategy, the NDS. Well, the latest commission just released its report looking at the U.S.'s most recent NDS, which is from 2022. And the findings confirm what I've been hearing from military officers for at least the last few years. The United States military, in its current configuration, is not ready for the type of global conflict it could likely see very soon. While it's true the United States was actively involved in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan for the last couple of decades, those weren't against nations like China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. And because of the landlocked nature of the fighting in the Middle East, the U.S. Navy saw a huge drop-off in investment and maintenance. On the flip side, the commission confirmed what we also already know to be true. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea are working together in ways they never have before. trading weapons, tech, vehicles, oil, maybe even soldiers. All the things a dictator needs to keep a war machine going. But to me, one of the most alarming things the commission said was just how unaware the average American is about the dangers the United States faces or the costs required to adequately prepare for a global conflict. Yes, the United States spends hundreds of billions of dollars on its military. Yes, it's more than what our adversaries spend. Freedom is about more than dollars. And it's long been the practice that we don't fund our warfighters so they can be evenly matched with the enemy. We fund them so they can overwhelm and destroy the enemy quickly. And if we put our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians in a fair fight, we've failed them. As a nation, we've been here before. The U.S. was slow to shift to a war-footing economy before World Wars I and II. Eventually we got there. But with the speed at which warfare moves today, the U.S. probably won't have the luxury of time to shift after an attack. We need to be ready before. Europe knows this. All of our allies in the Pacific know this. It's why they're spending on national defense at historic levels. Look, I don't do the fear, scare tactic type of reporting, but I am a realist. China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, those countries are run by bad people who want to do bad things. The good news is it's not like the Pentagon or Joint Chiefs don't know this. They do. It's why programs like Replicator and collaborative combat aircraft have so much support. They know what it's going to take to be ready. You should too. So I want to issue a challenge to you, the audience, to see if we can't flip the commission's findings over the next few months before the election day. So learn everything you can about our national defense strategy, because part of living in a democracy where we elect our leaders is being responsible enough to educate ourselves on the issues first. For senior producer Brett Baker, video editor Brian Spencer, and graphics designer Dakota Patillo, I'm Ryan Robertson with Straight Arrow News, signing off.